Hello and welcome to my video. Today I will be giving a recap slash synopsis of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, one of the most popular personal finance books of all time. And in this video I'll be giving you the listener the main lessons that are necessary to take away from the book. More importantly, at the end I will be explaining to you guys why I believe it's not actually necessary to read the book. Rather, it is a waste of time, as most of the book I'll get into that at the end, but this is kind of this is the purpose of my making this video, because I want to still give you guys the main lessons. However, I want to say why it's not necessary to read the book to get those main lessons. You can just hear them from here, and you can still get the main outcome of the book, which is like financial freedom, I guess. Um, the most reoccurring theme slash idea throughout the book was definitely most people work for money, but rich people have money work for them. Talk to just about anybody about how to make money, and the conversation will inevitably gravitate toward jobs. That's not wrong thinking either, at least not early in your life. The first step toward building wealth is generating a basic income. If you have no assets and no skills, you can sell to the general public in exchange for money. A job is certainly the most convenient way to produce a cash flow, but the difference between rich people and everyone else is that the rich don't stay in the job phase for very long. They realize early that in order to become rich, they need to become the people who hire others into jobs and not a job holder. By contrast, the rest of us typically spend our lives in the job phase, and we're trapped once we believe that a job is the only way to earn money. That locks you into working for money for the rest of your life. I would also like to say though, it seems that the idea in the book was given that in order to escape it's called the rat race in the book actually, work for 1 month, pay off your bills, have nothing left over, and repeat. In order to escape the rat race, it's kind of giving the idea that you have to make a company, and this is false. I'm not saying that this is the main idea portrayed in the book. It also talks about how you can become financially free without having your own company. But just keep that in mind. You don't have to have your own company. If you can manage assets and actually use excess cash in order to produce cash flow, have money work for you, such as investments, then that is just the same idea. You do not have to be a business owner to become free from the rat race. And then the next lesson is it's not about how much money you make that matters. It's about how much money you keep. One of the behaviors that most separates the rich, especially the self-made rich, from others is the emphasis on saving money. One of the fundamental obstacles for most people is that budgetary priority goes to spending. Saving gets only what's left over. So saving is kind of the middle child, you know what I'm saying? Or like the child getting the hand-me-downs. It's the last priority essentially. This is for people who are in the rat race, at least in the book. For example, let's say that you have a net household income of $5,000 per month. After paying necessary expenses and a few luxuries, you have $250 left to put into savings. That means only 5% of your net monthly income is going to savings. And in many households, even that amount is swallowed up by any unexpected expenses. In others, the amount seems so insignificant, the saving effort is abandoned entirely. The situation is very different among the rich, particularly among those who aspire to become wealthy. Though financial planners may recommend saving and investing 10 or 15% of your income on a regular basis, the aspiring rich may save 30, 40, and even 50% of their income. Obviously, though, with very poor interest rates these days, it is not recommended to simply put this saved money into a savings account. You can either invest it, even using a robo-advisor is more advisable than saving. There are many robo-advisors now out that can easily give you many more percentages than just a general savings account, or you can put the money into real estate, although the subject requires quite a bit of knowledge to be successful in. For example, one of the main ideas that the author was showing in his quick rise from the bottom to the top was he was buying foreclosures during the financial crisis at very lucrative prices. But obviously this can only be done by those who know like the law, how these transactions work. So I would not recommend this for beginners. This is something to look at in the future, but definitely investing in your saved money is very strongly recommended. Rich people acquire assets. not liabilities that they think are assets is the next lesson. One of the major misconceptions so many people have about rich people is that they all inherited their money, but that belief set is completely self-defeating. Look at anyone who is a self-made millionaire, and there's an outstanding chance he or she spent most of their life acquiring assets that generate income. This is the exact opposite of what many other people think. Embracing the consumer mindset of the media and advertising culture, they instead invest their money in personal possessions they believe to be assets. So an example in the book is buying a new golf club bag. The minute you tee it off, it's worth a $450 driver's worth $90, and this is one of the expenses that many people in the rat race that will make. But for example, you can just buy a used set and still get the luxury, but have the discount, not acquire the liability. Probably the best example is the family home. Actually, this is the quintessential thing in the book. Is talking about how everybody thinks that the biggest investment of their life is a family home or just their home, but it's actually the biggest liability, which is one thing that I think the book communicated well. Most people think of it as the biggest asset they have, and they even devote a disproportionate percentage of their income both to acquiring and maintaining it. But while a house can build value over time, it's not an income-generating asset. Quite the opposite. It costs you money to keep it. It's really not an investment unless you sell it. Take your cash and invest it into something else that will produce income. Worse, the majority of middle-class homes are heavily financed. That may be understandable when the home was first purchased, but many people engage in equity stripping by taking home equity lines of credit and second mortgages when enough equity builds in the home, essentially binding themselves to like an infinite mortgage. So all you have to think about that is they're just kind of every time they acquire equity in their home, they're just trading it out for cash, essentially liquid cash. Others engage in serial refinancing, consolidating their first and second mortgages or taking cash out every few years. The long-term result is that while the value of the home rises, so does the amount of debt. Other non-income generating assets include cars, recreation equipment, furniture, entertainment equipment, and vacation homes. All may feel good to own, but none generate any income. Typical assets acquired by the rich include stocks, bonds, investment funds, income-generating real estate investment trusts, and businesses. And the thing about real estate is that Robert Kiyosaki was talking about how some people like to rent out homes, but this can become very cumbersome. So he was more into the flip and sell business, where he's actually not dealing as a landlord. He's just buying homes which have a promising uprise and then selling them. So one thing I like to show is that although the rental, be getting involved into the landlord business is very attracting, you have to think about some of the downsides too, which can involve undependable tenants, for example. What all of these types of assets have in common is that they either have the ability to generate a steady income, increase in value, or both. Over time, the gross in income generating assets results in a higher income. Eventually, the income being produced by those assets may be sufficient for the owner to live comfortably without having to work anymore. One of the other tips I would like to give, which is kind of given in the end of the book, is stop what you're doing. Some people get caught up in just life, just the constant forward motion of life. They need to stop and reconsider. In other words, take a break and assess what is working and what is not working. The definition of insanity, I don't want to talk about that, but that's also something in the book. Doing something over and over again. Basically, you need to periodically or intermittently take breaks in your life to really assess what is working, what is not working, what is causing me troubles, and what is working, what is bringing in income. So that's also something that I would recommend. Another lesson is find someone who has done what you want to do. Take them to lunch, ask them for tips, for little tricks of the trade. As for, whatever you want to become or whatever you aspire to be, you need to have mentors, and that's what the author was talking about in the book for quite a while, how when he was in the real estate business, he was able to consult with many of his real estate friends in order to get advice. about, and he even had partnerships. Like when he first started in real estate, he would go in as like a partner with one of his friends who had more knowledge. So he knew that obviously the risk is half, but not only that, he's going to learn from his friend who's in the real estate business while they're going into this venture. So always, when you want to go into a new field, try to find someone who is an expert in that field, and do not hesitate, because many people do not know people in this field. Do not hesitate to try to contact people or find their emails and ask, because most of the time these people are willing to help, at least to get you started. Now that is basically the end for the lessons. I'm going to talk to you guys about why you shouldn't actually read the entire book, why you should just watch videos like this or look on online forums about the main lessons and just try to implement those into your daily lives. So I think that is a waste of time, because a large part of the book is boring narration. At the end of the day, he's a businessman, so his fiction, the book is essentially a fiction. His fiction piece of the book is not that entertaining, because he's not a novel writer, he's just a business guy, right? So although the idea behind it is that if the author attaches a story to each lesson, it will be better remembered, it could be much more concise if he just gave the straight facts in a short page, but then it would be more like a pamphlet, I guess, not a book. And this resulted to me burning out on the book and losing interest, just due to the story kind of just not really developing. Also, not really a spoiler, but the entire premise of the story is fiction. The Rich Dad, Poor Dad parallel, which is basically, the book is talking about how he had a rich dad and a poor dad. It was not even, like, he's never explicitly said it himself, but it is pretty known that this was kind of a made-up thing, just to make the book more viable, I guess. Also, I think one of the most valuable lessons from the book is the presentation of Dale's cone of experience, which I have actually never heard of before reading this book, and I actually really was happy when I learned about this while reading. Obviously, we all know about visual versus auditory learners, but this pyramid is essentially kind of, obviously, the top is, well, the top piece of the pyramid is lectures, and then the bottom is teaching others. So it's basically a pyramid of retention, right? So at the top is lectures, like reading, basically passive stuff, and then at the bottom is active learning. And I always had this notion in the back of my mind that obviously active is better than passive, but this presentation that's in the end of the book, I really thought it was interesting that he included that, and it was eye-opening to me to know that there's science backing that, teaching others or doing it yourself is way better than just reading. So this will be in my next point. Essentially, the author is showing how this book is ultimately not that effective due to the position of the reading on the pyramid. I think reading on the pyramid is like the second highest thing, which is not good, because that's the lowest percentile. Which is why I'm only trying to give you guys some of the key ideas succinctly and recommend that you not read the book. So yeah, like, I think that was kind of contradicting himself. I think it was kind of like a shooting himself in the foot there by introducing that pyramid. Also, obviously, I'm grateful that he put it in there, because I think that that's a great kind of illustration of the process of learning and pedagogy. But also, it kind of shows that the book, you'll mostly not remember much of the book, because it's not that high on the pyramid. I mean, it's not that low on the pyramid. Lastly, this is kind of just I don't know how much like sustenance this claim has, but the guy himself is kind of shady, or at least that is the general consensus about him on the internet. For example, he's a staunch supporter of Donald Trump, the two having written a book together, and I abhor the current president even more with the present political climate. There also seems to be some controversy regarding some of his teachings being illegal, such as borderlining tax evasion, for instance, as some of his recommendations. I'm not making any claims myself, simply reporting what I've seen, although the idea of tax evasion, I definitely think it was portrayed in the book to an extent, the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. So yeah, guys, that's my kind of opinion on the book at the end there, and at the beginning, that was some of my some of the main lessons that I thought I should tell you guys about. Please let me know what you think, and thank you for watching.